process, modifications to the proposal, budget details, grant agreement, progress and financial reports, and next steps. Looking at our timeline, we have selected the awardees and the applications are now appended awarded. The next stage of the process is proposal modifications. Before we can officially award the application and start drafting the grant agreement, we must make sure that the proposals are complete. Some of you may have received an email notification that comments to the proposal are available. If not, it will be forthcoming. So when there are comments waiting for your action, all of the authorized officials assigned to the documents will receive an email notification that modifications are needed. So when you receive this email, you will log into Sage and open your application documents. This will be on your My Task list on the homepage. And then you will go to the Forms menu and scroll down to the Grantee Evaluation Summary page where your scores are located. And then on this page, you will see comment documents. And then you will click on the link to open the document. And then you will need to address the comments by going back to the application pages on the Forms menu and revising the relevant sections. So the idea is that the application will eventually be your scope of work that we put in your grant agreement. In this RFP, we stated that the funding for this batch of grants will expire on December 31st, 2026. So this means that any expenditures past this date may not be eligible for reimbursement. In order to give you the most time possible, we will give everyone an early work period start date. This start date will be the date we have accepted your proposal modifications and have started drafting the grant agreement. An early start date means that any work that is performed from the start date forward will be reimbursable under the grants. But you will have to wait for reimbursements until after the grant is executed. This is an element of risk for the grantee. If you choose to wait until the grant is executed, this is fine, but we will still need to put in an early start date in the grant agreement to ensure that the grant period does not go past the December 31st, 2026 deadline. Please be aware the number of months for your grant will begin from the early work period start date. So if you need to change the number of months that you put in your proposal, you can request it with your modification submittal. And then lastly, as part of your proposal modifications, we would like you to submit a Gantt chart or some sort of spreadsheet with timelines and milestones to ensure that the project will be completed at least 6 months prior to the December 31st deadline. So for the next set of slides, I will go over what information is needed on the budget details page of the application. To help you out, we have created a budget details guidance document with examples on how you should put in the information on this page. So in general, the information in the budget details should show us how you calculated the total amounts that you put in for each category. So I am requesting that everyone review their budget details when it is with you for modifications and to follow this guidance document when filling out the budget justification. So for the salary category, there are two types depending on if you want to provide hourly rates or salaries. The tables illustrate what information is needed for each type. So for hourly wages, we will need to know the title, the employee name, if known, total hours they will devote to this grant, their hourly rates, and then the total amount that they will receive. For the salary employees, you will indicate their annual salary, the percentage of time they will work on the grant per year, the number of years of the grant, and then the total amount. Please be sure that the calculations match exactly what you put in the total amounts. For the fringe category, we will need to know the employee's name or title, the total amount that they will be paid for this grant, the fringe rate, and the total amount of fringe for the employee. Information will be needed for each employee listed on the salary category as applicable. Next is the contractor-subcontractor category. Third parties and consultants should be put into this category. If the contractor-subcontractor is known, please put in the company name and detail what work they will perform and the estimated cost for the work. If the company is not known, you can put in TBD, but still describe the work that will be performed and the estimated cost you have set aside for this work. For the supplies category, this will only be the cost incurred by the grantee. We will need to know what you will be purchasing and how many, the estimated cost, and why you are purchasing this. If the cost will be incurred by the subcontractor, then it should be included in the subcontractor category as their cost. And then for the monitoring category, again, this is only cost incurred by the grantee. You will let us know what type of monitoring will be performed, the amounts, and why this needs to be done. If you are hiring a lab to do the analysis, the lab company should be put in the subcontractor category. But if you are doing the lab analysis on your own, then it would be put under this category. Next is the training category. We will need to know the type of training, whether it be a conference, a training for the public, the amount for the training, and then the cost breakdown of how you derived at the training cost, such as registration fees or facility fees. We do not allow food purchases to be reimbursed by this grant. Next is the travel category. You will indicate the type of travel, the mileage rate, estimated miles, and the amount for this travel. Please note that in the RFP, we listed the travel rate as 56 cents per mile, so you should be using this rate in the calculation instead of the state rate, which we specified in the guidance document. There is an audit category. If you need this, we will need to know who will be doing the audit and then how much it will cost. And then the next category is indirect. Indirect costs are not required as part of the grants, but if it is available, indirect costs covers a portions of the grantee's general overhead costs, such as lighting, toner, cartridges, printer, paper. But if the office supplies are directly related to the project, then you should move it to the supply category. All indirect costs are calculated as a percentage of modified total direct costs. Eligible MTDCs are salaries, wages, fringe, supplies, travel, and up to the first 25,000 of each subcontract. You do not have to use all of these categories to calculate a MTDC, but please specify the categories you do use. And then MTDCs do not include equipment, rental costs, or the rest of each subcontract if it's above 25,000. So once you determine the categories you want to use, you will add up the expenses and then multiply it by your indirect rate or NICR rate. And this will calculate the total indirect cost. So if you have a NICA rate, you must provide us with the documentation for this rate. If you do not have, if you have a NICA rate but want to use a lower rate, you must have your financial office provide us with a memo approving the lower rates. And then you can upload this documentation in the supplemental attachments page of the application. If you do not have a NICA rate, you can use the baseline rate of 10%. And then the next category is other. This is for anything that does not fit in the categories already mentioned. And then we go into match. We have two types of match, in-kind and cash. So in-kind match is strictly volunteer time or equipment donation. There is no money being exchanged. And then for this detail, we will need to know who the volunteer is or how many volunteers, what the volunteers will do, the total number of hours that they will devote to the grants, the hourly rate, which you can Google what the national volunteer rate is, and this will calculate the total amount. And then everything else would fall under cash match. This can be for employees or subcontractors who will not be paid out of the grant, but are still getting paid in some form. Any supplies that will be purchased by the grantee, volunteers, or another organization is a cash match. Donations, also cash match. And you will need to provide the same type of information as before to show us how you calculated the total amounts. Please be as specific as possible. And then lastly is the other funding category. This category is for other funding or grants you may be using, but you are not claiming as match. Here we will need to know what the funding is, the amounts, and how it will be used in the grants. So some things to think about when we actually fill out the grant agreement are advance payments. There is an option for advance payment if your organization does not have the funds to pay for the work upfront. Typically, funds are dispersed through reimbursements. This means that financial reports are submitted and you provide us with invoices, receipts, and proof of payment, which means canceled checks or bank statements that show the invoices were paid. You will then be reimbursed for those payments. But if you do not have the funds to make payments, it is best to have advance payments written into your grant agreement. We can come up with a schedule when the funds will be dispersed, but any future funds cannot be dispersed until 80% of the previous advance payments have been spent. Next, you will need insurance information, liability, automobile, workman's comp. This insurance is for the grantee organization only. I just found out that all grantees should carry at least general liability insurance. So you will need to upload this information eventually into the grant agreement. For any contractor or subcontractors that you know you will be using, you will need to upload their business registration and contact information in the grant agreement, attachment F. If you do not know yet, this is fine, but you will need to provide us with this information at some point when you submit an invoice for any new subcontractor. We cannot reimburse any payments until this information is supplied. So if you need advance payments, you should email your DEP grant manager, and you can also CC me. And then once you revise your application pages, you will send it back by going to status changes and clicking the Apply button underneath Modification Submitted. We will then review your changes, and if acceptable, we will officially award the grant and draft the grant agreement. So looking at the timeline again, we will be at this stage of the process, draft grant agreement. We will initially fill out the grant agreement forms and then pass it back to you for agreement modifications. All of the authorized officials will receive an email notification that agreement modifications are needed. So at this time, you will see a grant agreement section in the Forms menu below the Grantee Evaluation Summary page. And this is what the grant agreement section will look like under the Forms menu. So when the agreement is with the grantee for modifications, the grantee shall review each page of the grant agreement section for accuracy and to fill in any missing information. If insurance is required, you will upload the current certification of insurance documents. You'll fill out attachment F with the subcontractor information and their business certificate. The grant agreement does contain a resolution component, and there are different types depending on the organization. And in this resolution, they will name who the executor of the grant will be and what their role will be. There is standard language in the agreement for you to fill out and a certification page for the resolution. So the certifier will need to be added as a member of the organization with the role of authorized official to certify that page. And then once all of this is complete, you will go to status changes to submit the draft agreement. And then after you submit the modification, the last stages of the process are approvals. This will be from our legal office and then the management of the water quality restoration program. And then it will be sent to you for official grantee signature. So the executor of the grant will need to log into Sage and review all the pages of the grant agreement. The grant executor will sign the approval signature page and then check mark the certification boxes on attachments A, 2, and 3 and save the page so that their name appears at the bottom of the page. Please note if anyone else goes in after this, their name will overwrite the previous signatures, so please be careful. And then after the grantee signs, they will go to status changes and then submit the document. After it is received, it will be sent to our finance office for approval and then to our assistant commissioner for execution. There might be questions that may come up from finance, so we'll probably send back or ask you additional questions if needed. And then once the grant is executed, you will need to submit progress and financial reports. The progress reports will be submitted quarterly at this schedule. And then for the financial reports, we're doing things a little differently. We are allowing more flexibility. The financial reports should be submitted once every 6 months or when reimbursement is needed, whichever is earlier. But the standard kind of schedule we came up with is January through June, due August 15th, and then July through December would be due February 15th. We ask that the time period of the financial report coincide with the dates of the submitted progress reports so we can compare the work performed with the financial documentation. And then to initiate the progress and financial reports, you will have to search for your executed grant documents by going to the My Applications tab. And then once you open the grants, you will go to Related Documents and Messages. Here you will see 2 links to initiate the reports. The progress and financial reports are 2 separate documents, and you can initiate the reports anytime after the quarter has ended, up until the date the reports are due. After the due date, the reports will not be available, and you will have to contact us to open it up. I do want to point out that you will not be able to initiate the next reports until the previous reports have been approved and accepted. So it will be important for you to submit timely so that future reports will not be delayed. So in summary, the next steps are, if you have not submitted the risk assessment form and your UEI number, please do so. You should be receiving your proposal comments this week or next. And then I suggest the grant managers assigned to your grants and the grantees discuss the comments before you submit the modifications back to the DP to make sure that everything is addressed. And then lastly, we ask you to submit the modifications within 30 days of receipt so that we can start drafting the grant agreement and you can start working on the grants. So here's a list of the DEP grant managers assigned to your grants. I believe we will send out an email with the names and their contact information. Lynette, Tony, and Robert Howie. And then this is my contact information. If you have any questions related to SAGE, I'm available. So that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if there's any questions popped up.
Our first question is from Fred.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Jen.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Fred.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay. All right.
I
So
think you're still
Jen,
muted, Fred.
so it sounds like some people can hear me and some people can't.
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you too. Paul might be on your end.
I can hear you.
We can see you too. That's scary.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
okay, we good?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, yeah. So Jen, thank you for the presentation. My question is about the reimbursement. Thank you for the flexibility. I just wanted to confirm because a frequent stumbling block with the reimbursement is, as a consultant, we don't mind waiting for those quarterly reports, but when we're dealing with like a vendor who's going to provide a product or say an aeration system, any sort of material, we have to get money to them right away to pay for that product. So when we get to the point where we need to purchase something, should we, even in advance, forward a request for money, to purchase like a stormwater basin or something, or an aeration system, forward that in advance so that we can have that funding to then pay that vendor?
I would build that into the grant agreements as a as an advance payment for purchasing this equipment so that we don't have to go through an amendment process. It's already built into the grant agreement that you'll get this.
Okay, so in the actual modification, we should identify that as something that's required advance payment for. Okay.
Yeah, I would request it.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And how much? Give us a breakdown of.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, next question is Johanna Connor. If you're muted, if you,
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hi, Jennifer, and
Hi.
everyone. The presentation was really good, very, very useful for me, new to this. I have two questions. One, is the presentation, will it be made available to all the participants?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then the second question is, can you provide some kind of timeline after the awardees, provide all the information to their rep and the a timeline of when we can expect the grant agreement? Are we talking 30 days, 90 days?
The execution of the
Yes.
grant agreement, it could take, honestly, it could take 6 months. So that's why we are giving you the flexibility to have an early work period start date.
Okay.
Because I can't determine how long the approval process will be.
Okay. So with that in mind, if our municipality was intending to submit and provide in our application that we were requesting advance funds, then we would be at a disadvantage if we don't have the cash up in hand because we have to wait for the execution?
Mhm,
Okay.
exactly.
I just need to
Yep.
understand our timeline and what that looks like for us.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can't reimburse anything until it's actually executed. And
Okay.
then if advance payment is built into your grant agreements, we can, if you ask for, what we usually do is have a schedule of advance payments. So depending on how long your grant is, we can, if it's 3 years, we withhold 10% of the grant amounts just for our contingency that you will submit the final deliverables.
Okay.
So minus that 10% from the grant awarded amounts. And what's left over, we can divide it by 3 if your grant is 3 years, and then have that as a schedule. And when the grant is executed, we will disperse that first payment of advance payment, how much that is, like
Okay.
100,000 if whatever,
Thank
when
you.
the grant is executed. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thomas Murchell.
Rochelle, thank you. On the grantee insurance information, are you just requesting a list of the insurance minimums, or do you need someone to be named as insured as well?
Insurance, your general liability insurance, workman's comp.
Correct. You just need all the limits and proof, or do you need actually somebody to be named?
The proof.
So you don't need like whoever's giving the grant to be named as the insured or anything like that.
That's a good question. I think it's
You
just
just
your
you just need proof of
organization.
limits. Sounds like.
Yes, yes.
And you need that from all the subcontractors as well, I think you said?
No,
Oh,
it's
you do
just
not.
for the grantee
Okay, great.
organization. Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Don Brockell is the next question.
How you doing? Chairman of the DLA Commission. I'm not a SAGE guy. I'm just a volunteer, right? So if some of the volunteers want to review the document from SAGE, is it possible to put in a PDF format and send it to the emails that are on the list? Plus, our SAGE, our contractor is going to be doing the inputs, but there's any way to get a hard copy directly to us for the folks that are in it?
A hard copy of the proposal or a hard copy of the grant agreement?
Well, basically everything that you have in Sage. I know we have to go in Sage and do some changes. I don't really know what those changes are, how the wording is, until my contractor goes in and looks at it. Is there any way to expedite that and send us a PDF so we can all see it prior to our contractor opening up the file?
Yes, there is a section in Sage where it says management tools, and then you could print a PDF of the proposal.
Okay. So, okay.
But
So
I mean, I could do it for you if you just send me an email.
okay. I could do that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Next question is from Jacqueline Rhodes.
Good morning. So I just wanted to clarify that you had said we should be receiving by next week any additional changes that we need to make to our grant, like if there are updates or
Right.
anything like that.
Right. Any comments that the grant manager that is assigned to the grants is reviewing the proposal and then listing any comments or questions they may have. We also ask you to look at the budget again, the budget details, to make sure that everything is following our guidance document.
Okay.
But yeah,
And we have 30 days, right? Because the emails that we received said 30 days to complete the changes.
we're asking 30 days. I mean, if you need longer, we can be flexible. It just will delay the execution of your grants. As soon as you give us the information, the sooner we can process it.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Thank you.
Fred Lubnow again. Sorry.
Hi, yeah, and I'm pretty sure this was already clarified, but I guess I just want confirmation. So if a subcontractor is doing any monitoring, any lab, any out in the field, anything, that should all be folded under subcontractor fee.
Correct.
Monitoring that's done by the applicant goes under that monitoring.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Thank
And
you.
then under that subcontractor, you will list, okay, they'll be doing monitoring and this is how much it'll cost, and anything you can be as detailed as possible.
Okay, like number of samples, type of parameters, stuff like that, or can we give
No,
like?
you could be general, but then you will have to give us a monitoring amounts.
Right, like for like a full day of monitoring, this is the fee we'll be
Amounts.
doing, and then maybe
Yes.
just a few words there.
Right, exactly. Right. You don't have to go into so much detail of, okay, how many samples and
Okay.
and whatnot.
Thank you.
Heather Desco.
There. So just a question, since we've got a shift in timelines here, it doesn't appear, with the funding that there would not be an opportunity for a no-cost time extension. That seemed to be the case for this project. Okay, so, as a project that has multiple years of work, if we need to be finished 6 months before the time frame, work was proposed to start now. And I know there's the early work period, but there's obviously a lot to happen and still go through the modifications process. Should we talk to our project manager about how we should address that scheduling if we've now got to compress that timeline? What's your kind of thought on that? Because there would need to be a timeline modification as part of that would need to go into, so it's like, can't start now because we don't have, haven't figured out what that plan is. So should that just be a conversation with the project manager?
Yes.
Okay.
It should. And then that's why I kind of was asking for the Gantt chart and schedule of milestones and timelines so that we can see exactly how you are going to meet this deadline. Unfortunately, EPA is not giving us an extension. I mean, they may at a later time, but at this point, we have to stick to that deadline.
And so the work should be finished by 6 months in advance of that. So that's final progress reports. Is that the request?
No, the project has to be completed. I think we give 90 days to submit the final reports and whatnot.
Okay.
Final expenditure, financial reports, because we need to expend it by that December 31st.
So yeah, so it needs to be reimbursed by December 31st. Okay.
I think if we have to cash the check by December 31st.
Okay, great, thank you.
Colleen Lyons, did you have a question?
I did. I'm thinking about one of our projects, and I don't want to get too specific, but we are working with the municipalities during our 5-year drawdown of Lake Opakon. So we'll be removing some sediment at outfall locations. we won't know how much sediment is there, and it'll be difficult to calculate rates or disposal. Like, does it need to be that specific, or could it be kind of an estimate for the overall project on disposal?
For your proposal?
For
In your
the
proposal?
modification? I mean, like, does it need to
Oh.
be that detailed?
I'm not sure what your grant manager
Okay, I can
commented
reach
on.
out. That's kind of what I thought after the last questions. I'll just reach out to the grant manager. That's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, Craig McGee, did you have a question?
No, I clicked the wrong button. Sorry.
That's okay. Tashi Vasquez?
Good morning. Quick question, and I put it in the chat. I'm not sure you were able to see it. Where are we uploading the BRC, the risk management, insurance information, etc.?
That'll be when I draft the grant agreement. I'm not at that stage yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So we
I
submitted.
just want you.
Yeah, awesome. So we submitted our modification already. So I
you
didn't
did.
know if you needed this information. Yeah.
Okay. No, not yet until it's agreements, modifications. Then you can upload the information.
All right. So I'll look forward to that email. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that's in the chat is there a cap on the amount of advance payment, and how early can early start date?
Is there a cap for advanced payments? There's no cap, but you would have to justify the amount. What was the other question? How early start date? It depends on how fast you can give us the modifications. I think what we'll do is send everyone a approval letter with the approved start date when the modifications have been accepted, so that you have it on hand, that you have this early work start date. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yes, I just want to reiterate that for the advance payment, it would be 90% at the most, because you need to reserve that 10%. I don't know if that was the question. If that answers the question, but we have to keep that 10% until the final deliverables are there. Meghana?
Hi, this is Meghna from NJIT. We have already submitted our modifications based on the comments we received. We didn't know about the Gantt chart. So were we supposed to submit it at this point of time for the scheduling?
The Gantt chart, you can submit that. Do you want me to send it back to you? Your document?
Yeah, sure. Like, if we have to submit at this point, we can, receive it again and then send it.
Yeah. And look at the budget details also again.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send it back. NJIT, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
It's I think 0040.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's a chat. Will the PowerPoint be sent via email?
Yes.
Yes, we'll send the PowerPoint along with the list of DP grant managers. Catherine? Okay.
Yes, sounds good. We'll send it. It does have to be converted to, the proper format. So just give us a couple days. I'm not seeing any other hands, and I'm not seeing any other messages in the chat.
Okay.
So if there's no more questions for us, thank you all for coming, and we look forward to continually working with you to execute these grants.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you all for the
Thanks.
information.
Take care.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jen.
Jen.
Thank you.
Be well.
Bye-bye.